Hey, and welcome back to another Questions People Ask Me. This is part 4. So, um, we'll start with a question I got from somebody on one of the pages I manage. Um, and this is from Sarah. And it's a question she has gotten asked a few times, and it's been shot at me as well. Um, the question is, it's rather broad, but how did you do that? You're blind. And it comes in various forms, obviously, but that's the essentials of the question. How can you do that if you're blind? Um, it basically equates incompetence or inability with visual impairment or disability, and it's really insulting. On the one hand, it assumes that a person is unable to carry out basic functions a lot of the time. I literally received this question the other day when I used my credit card. Um, just because we're visually impaired doesn't mean we're incapable. But it also assumes that capability goes hand in glove with being, sighted or not disabled. And there's a lot of people out there that struggle with everyday life that have all their senses. So it's a strange sort of clunky question that I think just shows that people aren't often exposed to um, people with disability, and I don't necessarily think it's meant to be insulting. And I often wonder if people realise the problem with the question, but there it is. And the answer as to how we do these things is because we have to do these things to get by, so we learn to. But anyway, the next question came to me from a little girl on the street. I was out taking a walk. I do that every day for exercise, and she was riding her scooter. Her dad was with her, and he got her to move over to the side on the nature strip to let me pass, which, I'm not phased. I would have happily walked around, but whatever. And she noticed the white cane and demanded to know what it was. And he gave the explanation that it was in case I fell over and hurt myself. It was to help me. And so she asked the question on a logical chain that if it was to stop me falling over, why did I not have to wear a helmet? And I get that because she's on a scooter and has to wear a helmet for that. But the thing is, it's the very fact of the cane preventing us from falling over, helping us find obstacles and things in our way, that means we don't have to wear a helmet. Also, if every person who could potentially hurt themselves doing an action had to wear safety equipment, then a lot more people would be wearing safety equipment a lot more of the time. And let's be frank, there's people out there refusing to wear seatbelts in cars despite the proven benefit of doing so. So let's not even open that Pandora's box, shall we? However, I understand why she asked the question, and well done her for being so forthright in demanding justice for having to stop riding her scooter because somebody was failing to wear a helmet, which in her world view is how it should have been. Now, a comedian friend of mine, Jojo, who also works in IT, noticed that memes often have translations on them, but that when she read those translations, they often weren't as funny anymore, and wanted to know whether this is something that the blind community had encountered. So I put this to my blind and visually impaired friends, and the responses were quite varied. Everything from, we loathe memes, I can't access these, don't care, it's all down to whether or not you have multi-layered translation software, and the deeper you probe into the translations, the more amusing they get, to the general consensus of at least they're trying to include us and there is an attempt being made, even if it doesn't always work. And I think that last one is probably the best answer, because people who create memes and GIFs and so on, they don't ultimately have to give a crap that the blind and visually impaired can't access what they're doing. They could just churn out memes at a rate of knots without any consideration. So at least they're trying. And that conversation actually led to another question, which is, does audio description software work? Does that option you get on your DVD to describe a movie or TV program actually serve its function? And it's quite a broad question, but the shortest of answers is yes, by and large. It could be better, but most of the time it does what it needs to do. Some of the time it's frustrating in its slackness. Sometimes it's repetitive, like for example in Goosebumps 2, The Haunted Halloween, there's a scene where the main characters discuss that there's a grandmother asleep on the couch 6 times, and when they finish talking, audio description then informs you that the grandmother is asleep on a couch. Stuff like that is wasteful, and they could be actually doing better describing things that haven't already been told to us. But, it's a balancing act between not talking over important stuff in the movie and telling you stuff that is vital to the plot. And again, one day maybe they'll have multi-layered audio descriptions so you can dive deep and have the choice of what you get described and how much and how frequently and so on. But early days. And question 5, the final question, came from a friend of mine called Steph, who, like a lot of people, assumed that the blind all have super hearing, and was kind of taken aback by the fact that I'm not only deaf in my left ear, but have reduced hearing in my right. And asked, I'm a blind person who's part deaf, how does that work? And it just does, is the short answer. I've always been this way since I had a visual impairment. And maybe life would be, peaches and cream if I could hear, with super hearing, but I've never had that, so I don't know. Also, some of it's on me because I worked in radio, and that invariably gives you tinnitus, so avoid that if you get the option. However, I just have to accommodate for the fact of a hearing loss and make sure that I keep that in mind when I go about my daily life. It doesn't make things easier, but I think everybody has stuff that they have to work into what they do. So yeah, I'm sad to say, no, I'm not a Marvel comic superhero with super senses, whatever else, but most of us aren't. Anyway, there's the end of that, and let me know what you think in the comments below.